Speaking of normies, normie Republicans, at least did you see, Michael, that you had Bill Barr, after everything he has said about Donald Trump, saying that he is still going to go out and support him this presidential election because the real threat's coming from the far left?
See, Alicia, you had to see, I was doing just fine until you had to go and do that. So y'all need to understand, and because Simone and I, we may differ on some things, but we are in agreement here. Don't believe this crap coming out of these folks' mouths when they're sitting up there talking about how bad Donald Trump is, because that's not the bar. That's not the bar. The test is the next question. So who you voting for come November? Because you cannot say something or someone is an existential threat to you and to the country you supposedly believe and love and live in. And then in the next breath go, but I'm going to back the person who is the threat to that very thing that I love and believe in. So, just don't even pretend anymore here. There are a lot of folks out there like that. The test in this election is not, I don't like Donald Trump. It's the next question. Who you voting for? Because that's where the truth is really going to lie.
And it's not again. That's why all this widespread praise, not here on this network, but some people have taken it overboard with Speaker Johnson and all the things that transpired because of the vote yesterday. But you have to ask yourself, is this a moment or is this real movement for these individuals? And when it comes to Bill Barr, who, if I remind y'all, got his job with the Trump administration because he was going on Fox News espousing a position that would give Donald Trump a permission structure to literally commit crimes while in office, and a legal theory that he knew Donald Trump agreed with. That's how Bill Barr got on the list to get into the Trump administration. I've never believed him. I don't trust him. And I do not trust the people who are out here trying to distance themselves from Trump because they want to protect their pockets and their bottom line. They want to continue to get their speaking engagements and have their little legal careers and their law licenses. And they want to continue to be accepted into polite society, cough, cough, Ivanka and Jared. Yet, we are not hearing them stand up for our democracy. We don't trust you. Isn't that what Future said? We don't trust you.
I'm curious.
Simone is quoting Future. Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. That should not surprise anyone. Bill Barr, these guys, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Just disgusting how, again, people talk about, and we're going to get into Stephen A. Smith a little bit later, but people talk about how Biden, allegedly, the Biden administration is weaponizing the Justice Department against Trump. It's a bunch of nonsense. That dude, Bill Barr, was he ran the DOJ when Trump was in office and utilized it for Trump. That's just the bottom line. But nonetheless, this morning, the beat goes on. And this is what really has to aggravate you when you hear a Stephen A. Smith or a Charlemagne or somebody spew the nonsense that they spew with their type of platform. A Republican lawmaker has signaled plans to mount another effort to limit diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, this time at Kentucky's public universities, after the GOP supermajorities failed to resolve differences on the issue during the recently ended legislative session. We're going to talk about that this morning. Mississippi, here we go. Mississippi governor has proclaimed April Confederate Heritage Month. Here we go, right? And of course, like we said, Stephen A. Smith rightfully was dragged. And of course, his massive ego and apparent MAGA loyalty made him double down on his disgusting rhetoric. But from Holly Robinson Pete to the NAACP, and even Stephen A. Smith's proclaimed buddy, Roland Martin, they rightly blasted him. We're going to talk about that this morning. And 50 Cent have plans to bring new opportunities for storytelling and entertainment to Shreveport, Louisiana, with the establishment of his new production company. And as much as I had fun over the weekend, Knicks won, Rangers won, the Garden was rocking. Couldn't help but to think yesterday, April 21st, marked 8 years since the day the music truly died. Prince Rogers Nelson died April 21st, 2016. Got to talk about my man Prince. We're going to do all of that and more this morning with the one, the only Austin Cooper is joining us. Good morning, Austin.
Good morning, brother. The legendary, renowned, the profound Stacey Brown. It's always good to start my week with you, brother. How are you?
Listen, you get a chance now to say it for yourself. You've always asked me about Aunt Pam. Aunt Pam is watching.
Hey, Aunt Pam. Aunt Pam, I'm going to be on my best behavior today. I promise you.
That is impossible. What is his best behavior, Aunt Pam? What is his best behavior? I want to know. I don't know. But Austin, so listen, we get started with another assault on DE&I. Just remember this, though, especially the reason folks got to understand this. And Austin, I know you have thoughts on this as well, probably a lot to say on it. But the reason for DE&I, the reason for affirmative action, just a few, right? Segregation, wage inequality, employment discrimination, housing discrimination. I mean, we can go on, and that's just the start of it. If your name is Stephen A. Smith or Charlemagne or Ice Cube or Tim Scott or Clarence Thomas or Candace Owens. But a Republican lawmaker has signaled plans to mount yet another effort to eradicate DE&I, this time at Kentucky's public universities. They're going to convene again in January. And State Senator Mike Wilson said he hopes lawmakers use the coming months to craft another version of DE&I legislation for the 30-day session in 2025. And we know these debates around DE&I efforts on college campuses have played out in state houses across the country this year. Republicans in at least 20 states have either successfully or at least sought to limit such initiatives, claiming they are discriminatory. And places like Alabama and Utah enacted anti-DE&I laws this year, and it goes on and on. A ban enacted in Texas last year led to more than 100 people losing their jobs at the University of Texas. So, Austin, here we go. DE&I assault.
Yeah, as long as there is, racism in American society, and there always will be, there's going to be a need for affirmative action. There's going to be the need for DEI programs in both the public and private sectors. And what we're seeing now is, white folk, racist white folk, become more and more afraid of the realization that they are soon going to be the minority. We see the increasingly daily uptick in these types of attacks against people of color and blacks in particular. Some of these same folks have been silent for years when it came to racism against us, but now that they view themselves as under threat, and it's disgraceful. And look, as long as a person has white skin, he or she is going to be at an advantage in our society. If you look at you go to a hospital in Harlem or a hospital in Jackson, Mississippi, and go to the newborn ward and look at two babies, a black baby, a white baby, parents, same economic, social backgrounds, same incomes, that white baby still has a better chance of advancing, of succeeding in America than does that the black baby. And this is again a reminder, and I always circle back, Stacey, if I may, to the importance of voting, not only at the federal level, but the state level, but also at the local levels of government, because our blackness is consistently under attack at all three levels of government.
Well, Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, of course, denounced those efforts. But the problem is that they have a supermajority there in Kentucky that can override any veto of the governor, and that is that's an issue. That's an absolute issue. And so,
And the only way to
unless
change, and the only way to change that is for folks, folks to get out and to make folks who share our belief, who are representing our interests, that super majority, to give the governor the political cushion and the political cover that he needs. I guess in this instance, I don't know much about him, to do to do the right thing. We need to have super majorities at the councils. We need to have supermajorities at the state legislatures, and we certainly need to have supermajorities in the House and Congress, and especially in the White House. But I hear what you're saying.
it's the thing about it is we see where things are going and have been going for a while now, and now with it being an election year, especially this last year and this year, they've ramped up what is now not just rhetoric, what is now not just dog whistles. They are coming for all, not some, but all people of color, including
Yes, yes,
including
yes.
those who want to put the black face on, including those who want to dance the jig, including those who want to align themselves with uh, the white supremacists.
Hmm.
They are not safe. They may think they are, but they are not.
Hmm.
Um, I'm, re- I'm thinking of. I saw this for the first time. I'd never seen this before. Over the weekend, a video of the late great Richard Pryor talking about the efforts of those in the civil rights movement, and he talked about how essentially there are many, including himself, who he recognized as he put himself in this bracket as, too scared or cowards when he realized what they were doing
Hmm.
day in and
Hmm.
day out.
Hmm.
And it brought him to tears. I had never seen that video
Wow, I've
before.
never seen that.
And he really went in on how in Mississippi in particular, um, how these folks with the civil rights activists would
Medgar
get
Evers.
together.
Yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
they would
yeah.
get together. He said just meeting was dangerous.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
he said he realized that, and the tears start um coming out of coming down, and he had to wipe his tears. I mean, let's just look at a part of it. I think we have a part of that video now. Let's just look at, I mean, have the video. I think let's look at just a little bit of it, and you can get a better idea of what I'm trying to describe with Richard Pryor.
Alabama, Georgia. I was too scared to sit in the church at night and plan meetings. I was too frightened to be a part of that. But if it wasn't for you people who were down there and did that, believe me, I know in my heart that I wouldn't be here today.
I mean, listen, we
That's
need not
real.
even
That's real.
right,
That
right.
is real. That is, that is gut honest. That's really looking inward and being, honest with yourself. I mean, I'd like to think that I would have been, one of the courageous. I hope that I wouldn't be one of the courageous, but I have never been under the threat of death. And you think of the courage of, Medgar Evers when he was assassinated was, I think, 36, 37 years old. He just did not become suddenly a target in the last year of his life. He was always a civil rights advocate. And, once he became field secretary for the NAACP at the age of 29 or 30, he became a direct target. I mean, the courage of him, the courage of his wife. I'm just reading the book now that Joy Reid wrote on the life of Medgar and Merle Evers. You look at Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, all in their early 20s, early 20s,
Yes.
and Andrew
Hadn't started
Goodman,
to live yet.
Jewish, rich, white man from New York City. I mean, Michael Swerner. James Chaney was was the one black, and he lived in Mississippi. But again, the courage of these three to be under, and they got to Mississippi, I guess, on I forgot the exact date, in June of 1964, but they were dead within 24 hours of
Right away.
arriving in Mississippi.
Yep. Yep. And so, see, so all of this, so we're like, we're laying down some tracks this morning and laying down some tracks for this train to run over the Stephen A. Smiths of the world. And speaking of Mississippi, as we continue to lay the tracks down, Governor Tate Reeves declared April 2024 Confederate Heritage Month in the state of Mississippi, keeping alive a 31-year-old tradition that began in 1993. The Museum Beauvoir in Biloxi, Mississippi, an historic home of Confederate President Jefferson Davis, announced the proclamation in a Facebook post this past weekend, where it says, "Whereas as we honor all who lost their lives in this war, it is important for all Americans to reflect upon our nation's past, to gain insight from our mistakes and successes, and to come to a full understanding that the lessons learned yesterday and today will carry us through tomorrow if we carefully and earnestly strive to understand and appreciate our heritage and our opportunities which lie before us." That opportunity that lies before them, of course, is to bring back the 18th and 19th centuries.
Exactly. And I don't need to honor races of our past, races during the Civil War. The Confederacy, their number one mission was to advance and to keep slavery in place. I don't need to honor races from the past in order to understand the way forward. And keep in mind, this same governor who's talking about, making up for the past and looking ahead, is looking up in the head, looking ahead as a supporter of Donald Trump and other racist policy that he is implementing in that state of Mississippi.
And this
Yeah, I mean,
museum,
and why is it that it's always black folk who are expected to sit back and to accept this kind of of nonsense? What other group of people would accept a month to honor previous efforts that were
it's
that were
like
meant to
it's like
degrade
setting
them?
aside a month to honor Hitler.
Exactly. Jews rightfully wouldn't stand for that, and blacks shouldn't rightfully stand for that. It is an important part of history. What Adolf Hitler did is a part of history, but it should be kept as history. It does not need to be relitigated every year with a month of such recognition. By doing this nonsense, all Governor Reeves is doing is sowing the seeds for future generations of racism. The Confederacy is indeed a part of American history. The flags should be shown in museums, not in in anybody's homes, or a flagpole like the American flag, not at the state capitol or anything like that. But it is important to learn your history in context.
Oh, and here's the other part of it. That museum that honors the Confederacy gets $100,000 a year from the state of Mississippi
Yes, yes, yes,
for
yes.
development and maintenance.
How much money are they giving the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson?
Right. Right. Absolutely nothing. Not the state.
Yeah, yeah. What, if
So
anything, are they doing for the upkeep of Medgar's home? I mean, I'm not certain. I may be speaking out of line here, but I know that I thought it was a part of the Smithsonian, but I could very well be wrong. But I do know that it is a popular tourist site, and it's being maintained by someone. But I'd be very surprised and pleasantly surprised to hear that the state of Mississippi is investing $100,000 for the upkeep of that Civil Rights Museum.
right. Absolutely. And so that what's going on in Kentucky, what's going on in Mississippi, what's going on everywhere brings us, the tracks have been laid. It brings us to Stephen A. Smith, or as someone wrote on social media, uh Stephen from the Django Unchained, or Stephen as in fetch it. Um, rightfully so. Rightfully. And Stephen A. Smith is a very, very intelligent man. Very intelligent. Can't take that away from him. Of course, at time, I mean, his knowledge of sports is off the hook, and that some people say he should stick to sports. But even that, at his ultra gigantic ego gets in the way. But the great thing that happened after his unbelievably stupid proclamation about black folks and Donald Trump, is that everyone came for him. Amisha Cross, for instance, says some of y'all will really say and do anything to trend and to
Mhm,
turn a
mhm,
buck. She says this is
mhm.
so wrong. It also belies the depths of inequities in our criminal justice system that impact blacks at the highest rates. It's like Gayle King with her horrific Dawn Staley interview. Um, think about this. Dawn Staley, and this is not switching subjects. I'm going to stay on track here, but this is an example of just how ridiculous some with platforms, black folks I'm talking about, get. Dawn Staley celebrating national championship, celebrating what the success that no other coach, black or white, has had.
Achieved.
And Gayle King, during the interview, says to her, "Well, I was rooting for Iowa." So Stephanie Mills, we love Stephanie Mills for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that Stephanie Mills is 1,000% gonna back black, right? So she took her to task on Twitter or X. Um, she goes on to say how um, Dawn Staley just accomplished something no other coach, white nor black, have, and yet Gail says to her that she was rooting for Iowa to beat South Carolina. She says the media in this country, this is Stephanie Mills talking, shapes our opinions about people rather we recognize it or not. It happens. For instance, we heard many headlines, stories, and images of Caitlin Clark. On the other hand, how many stories and headlines did we see or hear about Dawn Staley prior to her victory and even after her victory?
Barely.
Though the ability to choose who to cheer for is certainly subjective, as a black woman, Stephanie says, I just find it ironic that a black woman, Dawn Staley, made history, yet another black woman, Gayle King, would publicly admit that she was rooting for the opposing team. When do we stand in solidarity? Is the thought that comes to my mind. And then there's another user on Twitter who wrote this about Stephen A. Smith. Says Stephen A. Smith doesn't speak for the black community. Charlemagne does not speak for the Black community. They have made it to their respective positions, and now instead of fighting to uplift the community, they get high on being white adjacent. Their messaging is anti-Black and pro-white supremacy. The only difference between what Stephen and Charlemagne do to what the likes of Tim Scott does is that they are more dangerous. And of course, we know what triggered all of this. Stephen A. Smith, one post that he put up, he says that they can't beat Donald Trump at the polls, so they're prosecuting him, which is on his face is false because Biden did beat Trump at the polls.
Exactly. 2020. Exactly.
In 2020. And then
some would also say again in 2022 when we kept the maintain. Yeah. So really twice.
Really twice. Because all this talk about this red wave in 2022, it turned out to be a blue tsunami.
Exactly.
And Stephen A. Smith then goes on to say that Black people, Trump told the truth. Black people do relate because of the criminal situation. And of course, then he goes on to say, oh, y'all people are wrong. Y'all coming at me, blah, blah, blah. And then he says pretty much the same thing. Denying he said it while saying the same thing. Denying that or saying that it was taken out of context. It was not taken out of context.
And who did he learn that trick from?
Right. Who's the master at that? Some on social media telling Stephen A. to stay off the weed. The NAACP came out and deemed it blasphemous. Stephen A. Smith's his rant. NAACP called it blasphemous.
Good.
This guy, to get on there and say to basically back Trump and his speech that he gave to, you remember that speech where Trump said Blacks can relate to him because of his
Absolutely.
He was talking to white folks. There was no Black folks in the audience.
Nope.
And Angela Collins says, "Don't blame the weed." Right.
Exactly.
This is who
he is. This is what he believes.
Right.
This is what he believes. And as we were talking before the show, I certainly know who he is. I have certainly off and on watched and appreciated his sports commentary, but it is so painful when some folks we tend to look up to folks who have these like Stephen have these national, some might even say international platforms when they start stepping outside of sports or whatever their particular area of expertise is, and begin sharing their political views, and to learn that their political views are aligned with Trump's political views and the views of his supporters is always frankly painful and so disappointing to accept. So when he goes around the country, talking to Black folk, and if he's encouraging them to register and vote, we now know who he's he wants them to vote for. Or he may very well tell them it's not, no need for you to vote. Don't vote for Biden. Either or are damaging to the Biden ticket and helpful to the Trump cause. So I'm glad the NAACP rightfully condemned him. And who was it? Angela, you just mentioned don't blame the weed. This is who he. Yeah, this is who he is.
Yeah. It is who he is for sure. I think Greer's going to play an audio. Was that an audio? Well, nonetheless, here's what he said. He says, "Dare I say something that might be termed the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective?" And that's where he goes wrong anyway. Stay in your lane, Stephen A. He says, but I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statements
But I got
weeks
to
ago,
tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic,
it's so hard to hear
figures.
that.
We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have.
Well, how's he suffering, Stephen A?
Exactly.
How is he suffering?
Exactly.
This guy,
you would be suffering. He would be suffering. You and I would be suffering. Our viewers would be suffering.
Let me tell you
it's
something.
Nonsense.
The judge gave him Wednesdays off so he can campaign. There's no, so every Wednesday of this trial, there will be no proceedings.
What would happen to us, Stacey? What would happen to Stephen if he was in court and was unhappy with the proceeding for whatever reason, rightfully or wrongly, and he went on social media and attacked the judge's wife, attacked the judge, attacked the judge's children after a warning? Stephen wouldn't even be given any warnings.
But here's the thing, and you're talking about what's currently going on. The gag orders he continues to violate. But what about what got him there? This is the problem with Stephen A. Smith. What got that man 88 felony charges is because he appears to have committed major crimes, and people forget. Like I had a guy say on my tweet at me, because one of my profile pictures has me shaking hands with the president, right? And I realize how that can be misconstrued, right? As far as people, oh, you might support him. No, you get a chance to meet the president. I got pictures of me and Bill Clinton, Obama, right? George Bush. I don't support no one. Do you? But here, I understand how it could be misconstrued. But guy tweets to me, oh, you have a photo of a guy responsible for the crime bill. First and foremost, while Senator Joe Biden pushed that crime bill, so did the Congressional Black Caucus. So did just about every Black preacher, pastor, clergyman in the country. So did many Black folks, because they didn't know what else to do. They thought it was the right thing to do. But okay,
and most have admitted they were wrong. Bill Clinton had admitted he could have gone in that differently. But many members of the caucus,
But grant them that. So you're going to hold that against Joe Biden. That's your right. But what about, we could go into the whataboutisms all day when it comes to Donald Trump. I mean, Central Park exonerated 5. Even after exoneration, he still wants to hang them.
To be hanged. Yep.
How many people lost their lives because of the way he ignored COVID?
Over 1 million.
How many people 5 law enforcement officers lost their lives as a result of his Kool-Aid drinking followers going into the Capitol on January 6th. Stephen A. Smith wants to talk about, I know some Blacks. First of all, that's a lie. Because could you imagine Stephen A., Mr. $10 million a year, Mr. Ego, hanging out with anybody who has been locked up, and feels that, oh, Trump is getting the same type of raw deal that we got? No, Stephen wouldn't hang out with those type of people, so he's lying. He wouldn't hang out with those type of people. He's too big an ego.
Absolutely.
He's too uppity for that. He's not going to do that.
Yeah. And time again, Donald Trump, because of his whiteness, because of his status as an ex-president, is given more rope. I'm hoping that this judge, Merchant, will finally rein him in and put his you-know-what in, behind bars for however long if he breaks another gag order. Folks are, so afraid of, what's going to happen if an ex-American president goes to prison. America has survived a civil war. We've survived World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. We've still struggling, but have survived the civil rights movement. We survived an insurrection by an American president. We'll be fine. Had Richard Nixon not been pardoned and gone to jail in 1974, America would have been fine. Countries around the world jail presidents for wrongdoing all the time.
With all that privilege Trump has,
Yes,
you're gonna sit there and bemoan the fact that he's being held accountable with all that privilege. Jeff Pearlman, a sports writer, says you don't. This is what he said in response to Stephen A. Smith. You don't always have to play the expert on everything. You just don't. He says going on Fox News and supporting Trump doesn't make you sound grand and open-minded. It makes you sound uninformed and oddly anxious to please.
And we know the only kind of black that Sean Hannity is going to call on is a Stephen A. Smith kind of black. He's not going to call on Dr. Chavis or any of the other civil rights giants to be on his program.
And Mike V says a young black man by the name of Khalifa Browder was held in Rikers Island for a crime he never committed and suffered at the hands of the same system. Where was Stephen A. and Trump to speak on it? The NAACP wrote on their official X account, relatable, because Stephen A. says Trump is relatable to black folks because of his trials. Relatable? Show of hands. Anyone in your black family, this is what the NAACP wrote, in your black family have 88 felony charges pending, filed for bankruptcy 6 times, made an attempt to overthrow a presidential election and democracy, and still have the ability to fall asleep in court and dream of being president of the United States. They put hashtag blasphemous.
Exactly.
Good for the NAACP.
Well stated. Well stated.
Very good. Very good. And think about it. When Nixon, as Greer points out, the only reason why he wasn't charged while in office was because of what the DOJ decided. She says it wasn't even decided by a judge.
Yep.
So all of this privilege, no, black folks can't relate to it, Stephen A.
No.
They cannot in any way relate to it. We talked, we had a big show on Friday talking about the trial of the century, O.J. Simpson. And, it cost O.J., whether you think he's guilty or not. And, it wasn't about, the show program was not about guilt or innocence. At this point, it doesn't even matter, right? But O.J. spent $6.5 million. But that still pales in comparison to about the 10 million spent by the prosecution. They have such resources.
Exactly.
And they generally use those resources, or they use them the most, it seems, when it comes to black defendants.
I remember watching the OJ trial, as we all did. And I don't think I had honestly ever heard of DNA evidence and all of that until the OJ trials. And I say, wow, he must be paying these guys, and he was, a pretty serious amount of money for them to have the resources to really, dig in and to compete on a level playing field with the LA County District Attorney's Office. And then, as you all pointed out, he also had the advantage of the charismatic Johnny Cochran leading his team. But how many of us have those types of resources? I've always point out to the trial of Dr. William Kennedy Smith, of the famed Kennedy clan, who was accused by several women of rape, but found innocent. Again, Kennedy had Kennedy money to do DNA and all of that, and right or wrongly, he was found not guilty. But the average you and me, the average viewer, we don't have those kinds of resources. Many of us, unfortunately, are relying on court-appointed attorneys to defend us, and court-appointed attorneys who are wrestling 40 and 50 cases at one time. So how much attention are they really paying to your particular case that could put you in jail for a significant amount of time, and perhaps for the rest of your life?
And did Trump, again, I go back to his supporters, and one that comes to mind all the time is the black guy who owned the chicken franchise, who died of COVID at Trump's rally. What is it? Shoot, I can't think of his name.
Cain.
Yes, Herman Cain.
Herman Cain.
Right. He doesn't. You support him, he could care less about you. The guy set himself on fire the other day, killed himself outside of.
Has he even mentioned?
And that's where I was going.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I went
even
on every
mentioned
couple of days. I would go on to Truth Social just to see for myself, the nonsense that he is posting. And since this man set himself on fire, I guess it happened on Thursday, I'm not aware that Trump has uttered a word. His rally in North Carolina was canceled on Saturday due to inclement weather. But had that rally taken place, Trump would not have uttered that man's name.
It
He
wasn't
doesn't
even a
care.
statement from his camp to say,
Condolences, nothing. He doesn't
right,
care.
mental health, anything about mental health or anything. I mean, it's just people follow this man, and I don't know that this guy. There was some who said he was a Bernie Sanders guy for some odd reason. Well, I don't know why he would be there, but this guy at Trump's right outside the courthouse sets himself on fire. And apparently he was against both Trump and Biden. So maybe he's a Kennedy Jr. supporter. I don't know. But regardless, that nothing. It's like, okay, that's how he feels about most people. That is, he has no feelings. And so to go try and defend him and by co-signing his racist rhetoric that black folks can relate because he has 88 felony charges. It's some of the worst things you can do. And that's just, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I would still tend to think that he was a Trump-leaning supporter. Whenever you get caught up in all that conspiracy, nonsensical thinking, I think it's safe to assume that he was, a Trump supporter, looking for attention. He got attention. He could have done this nonsense, and certainly he's mentally ill, but he could have done this nonsense in St. Petersburg, Florida. But he traveled all the way up to New York City, and I believe, and I may get in trouble for saying this, I'm certainly not making light of the situation, but I'm going to say it anyway. Stacey, forgive me. I believe in a lot of causes, but I cannot think of one cause, not one, where I would set myself on fire to prove a point. To douse yourself in gasoline and to light a match. When I first heard about this, I just thought that maybe he kind of was partially burned, and people ran and jumped over, put him out. No, this man was engulfed in flames.
Yes. The reaction.
I mean, look at the image here.
CNN reporter.
Yeah.
Was just wow. Is this really happening? She says, you could smell
his
human flesh burn.
Yes.
It was just so startling, so unsettling. But this is the cult
Yes.
of Donald Trump.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
the
Yes.
cult of Donald Trump. And people want to say, they want. I saw something else too, real quick. You never know how true these things are or how overblown they may be. I think it was either MSNBC. I think it was they had on the headline on their website, college students are disappointed in Biden and they're not going to support him. And I'm thinking, here's a man that has forgiven tens of billions of dollars in student loan debt. Would be so much more if the Supreme Court, if the conservatives, the Republicans would not have blocked him.
Hmm.
What are you upset with him about?
Yeah. Yeah.
What could you possibly be upset with him about? He's trying to make it so you can go to school for free. Make it so that you
Hmm.
don't have
Hmm.
any debt at all.
Yep. If you didn't go to school for free, guess what? You got a fresh start because I have cleared your debt. So that money you putting towards you've been paying off on these high interest student loans that have for
That
so
never
many of our
ends for
students that
many.
never end. Now you can put those resources toward cleaning debt and becoming a
I saw
homeowner
some. I
or
saw
whatever
somebody
you
said
want to do.
they took out $80,000 student loan debt some years ago, and now they owe about 300 something $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of the interest. The interest is
Right.
crazy on these loans.
Unbelievable. So when you have the Stephen A. Smiths of the world and the Charlemagnes of the world, why don't they talk about stuff like that? Why don't they talk about how this administration has done wonders for HBCUs, more
Hmm.
funding for HBCUs, and as somebody mentioned too earlier, and I want to go back to that comment. I want to say it might have been Mike V. About HBCUs. Yeah, it was. He says Biden Harris Chips and Science Act will funnel hundreds of millions of dollars into HBCUs and PBIs for workforce development and research and development for these emerging industries. Let's talk about that. How about finding space for that? And if you find something else wrong, say it, but find space for things like that. They have such the problem we have with them, they have such a huge platform to intentionally spew, trying to get clicks, misinformation, dangerous information. It is absolutely, it is, that's, they came up with the terms, Uncle Tom and things like that for these reasons,
Absolutely.
for
Absolutely.
these reasons,
Yeah. And how
because
would
go ahead.
sorry. No, how would these students feel if Trump, God forbid, take the oath again on January 20th next year. And one of the first things that he does is to reverse what Biden did with student loans and put those
That's what he's going to
loans
do.
back in the laps of, I mean, was it worth it? Absolutely not. And that's what these young people and folks who say they're not going to vote or vote for any of these silly third party candidates need to be thinking, is he going to be, which we know he will be, more restrictive on women's access to to abortion? Is he going to be supportive of the survival of our HBCUs? My HBCU, St. Augustine University in Raleigh, North Carolina, we're on life support. St. August's on life support.
Well, you said, once he takes office, his hatred for Biden is only surpassed by his hatred for Obama, and everything Obama's
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
did, he tried to reverse. So
Mhm.
everything that Biden did, he's going to reverse. As
Mhm.
simple as
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
that's the type of person you're dealing with there, and that's just the bottom line. Look, let's move on from Stephen A. And his shenanigans to something positive. And 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, is bringing new opportunities for storytelling and entertainment to Shreveport, Louisiana, with the establishment of his new production company. He's bringing G Unit Studios to Shreveport, and as they said, it's not just a business decision; it's a commitment to fostering talent, creating opportunities, and building a community that thrives through creativity and innovation. 50 Cent said we see Shreveport as a beacon of inspiration and creativity. He unveiled the G Unit Studios, which is an extension of his primary G Unit film and television production company. And the one thing about this guy is that he, like him or not, he does create jobs for people of color. He has consistently done that.
Yeah, for that he should be recognized and thanked and always lauded, and he should be an example to other successful blacks to identify a community, adopt a community, and to give back. I mean, how many jobs, local jobs, is he going to create with this studio? Hopefully he's partnering with a local community college or HBCU, and it's going to be establishing classes for acting for folks who want to go into the entertainment industry or music. So this is great news. Great news.
It really is. It really is great news. And for Power 96, I'll tell you what else is great news for Power 96. He had to send me. He DM'd me over the weekend. I know it kills him that the Knicks absolutely manhandled the Sixers on Saturday as I sat in a packed Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, with my brother Monty. We had a absolute ball watching and here's the thing. The guy who should be MVP, even though they, see this hatred of the Knicks. This hatred of the Knicks didn't allow Jalen Brunson to be MVP, but he didn't even have a good game. But that man, Josh, all the heart, helped to calibrate, and Deuce McBride. And I mean, this was a win that really sets up nicely for the rest of the series. Power 96 is being very, very quiet right now, as he should be. He should just be making his crawfish and preparing for my arrival in Louisiana so he can pay up the crawfish. He said he told me it was like 3 pounds of crawfish or 30 pounds of crawfish or whatever. And look, there he is. He says, play your lottery numbers. The Knicks won a game. And then the same Mecca, the next day, the New York Rangers won the opening game of their playoffs against the Washington Capitals. So it was a great weekend.
Great weekend for New York.
It's a great weekend, period. Until yesterday, I realized it was a very solemn anniversary yesterday. It was the passing of the one and only Prince Rogers Nelson, the 8th anniversary.
Wow.
And Prince, I remember, Austin, the day Prince died. I remember being at my computer in my office. And I remember the news flash that, there's something going on at Paisley Park. And I was like, okay, what's happening at Paisley Park? And then the next story was, the next news flash was like, a body was found at Paisley Park. And I was like, oh my gosh. Then, of course, the confirmation came. And I remember yelling. My wife was like 2 floors down. And I remember yelling down, Janae, Prince is dead. No way.
Yeah. No, what I always tell folks that, when Michael Jackson died, I lost a part of my, lost a part of our respective childhoods. When Prince died, I lost a part of my young adulthood. No, that April morning, I was on Capitol Hill with a client, and that was 2016, and I had organized a Africa forum in which I had all of the candidates, Sanders, Trump, Hillary, all of the candidates running at that time, to send a representative come to Capitol Hill and talk about their prospective candidates' policies on Africa. And toward the end of the program, folks started looking at their phones, and there was a hushed whisper throughout the committee room. And afterwards, folks were not talking about Africa policy and what the various respective candidate representatives said. Everybody was talking about the shock and pain of losing such an icon.
I remember talking with Jerome Benton from the Time, and Jerome, of course, performed with Prince, and was in, of course, the movie Purple Rain and the movie Graffiti Bridge, and of course, one of my favorite movies, Under the Cherry Moon, and with they starred alongside Prince in that movie. And Jerome was telling me how he was outside, like basically having a yard sale, and the phone kept ringing. He said kept ringing, and someone finally he kept ignoring it, and somebody finally said, "You need to come inside." It's like, I'm in the middle. You need to come inside. Goes inside, and by that time, they had what you see there on the television. And I mean, he was absolutely, as you would imagine,
Blown
he was
away.
telling me, crushed. He
Yep.
couldn't believe it. He started calling Paisley Park himself just to see if he can get Prince on the phone, even though he saw it on the television. Um, it was just such a and you mentioned Michael Jackson. This is June will mark the 15th
Yeah, 15
anniversary
years.
of the death of Michael
Yes,
Jackson.
Michael's been gone. Yep.
Yeah, and the way that when I learned that news was more surreal to me than how I learned Prince's news. I just from the news, but Michael's was different. But we're talking about Prince today, and Prince. I just remember all of the great shows that I went to. I will always remember
I never
the
saw him.
night.
Always be one of my
uh,
regrets.
I will always remember the night that he got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That night, it was Prince night for me. So me and a date, we went to a this Prince tribute at BB King's restaurant in New York, and they had a tribute band playing because a little after midnight that night, we were invited to a private Prince concert at a place called Club Black in New York. And so we wanted to kill the time doing Prince stuff. And so afterwards, we get there and get escorted into this little club. Jay-Z and Beyonce, Alicia Keys, everyone's there.
Wow.
And Prince hits the stage at 2:30 a.m. And Prince never left the stage to change or anything. You know what time he finished that show? It was 6:30 a.m.
Amazing.
And
Just
I'm
playing
telling you,
nonstop. Wow.
non-stop jamming. And he spared no hits. He spared no hits. Everything in his catalog. He emptied his catalog that night, if that's even possible, because he's got so much in the vault that we still haven't heard. But everything that you may have liked of his, he did not hold back. It was such an incredible night. Of all of his shows, and I've been to many, that always stands out to me because
Wow.
of the fact that this man, with all that energy, this little man, with all that energy, that stands out. And the other one that stands out for me, Austin, real quick, I have to say, is one of me and my wife's first dates. I took her to a Prince concert because that was really the final test for her. She had to enjoy a Prince show. If she didn't enjoy Prince, I don't know that we would have made it.
And you were walking her closer to make certain that she was just not tolerating
Oh,
the Prince show.
so
She was really engaged.
she was engaged. We Morris Day and time with there, Sheila E. We sat literally. When you say first row is being modest, because we were basically in his dressing room. I mean, because he would come down off the stage and he dressed right there where we were at. And one of the things that struck me at the time was like telling my wife she's about his height. I was like, y'all could be brother and sister. So, but he what a show he put on my sister and her then husband at the time. We took them along as well. We had such a amazing time watching Prince and his musicology tour in 2004. That was one of our first dates.
Nice.
So I will always remember those two shows
That, that,
of all
that,
his shows.
Yeah, that will always be one of. I saw Michael perform several times, but that will always be one of my regrets not seeing Prince. And interesting, you mentioned that, and may he continue to rest in peace. What a giant, what an icon. But that's on my bucket list for this summer, is to hop on a plane on a Saturday morning and to go over and spend the day in Minneapolis and do a tour of his studio, his home.
So June, the Minnesota Twins, every year they have Prince Night, and they light up the stadium in all purple. And there's something coming up here.
Yeah, we're talking about Congresswoman Karen Bass or Mayor Karen Bass.
Oh, yes. I guess we should mention that Mayor Bass's home, I believe, her home was broken into.
Jesus.
While she was there.
She okay?
She's okay. It was she was not injured. I think the suspect was taken into custody. But yeah, that is something that perhaps we can pick up tomorrow when we get even more information. But wanted to just quickly finish. Power 96 says his last concert, was in Atlanta. He says he was there. He sat and performed for the majority of the show, but it was great. And the one thing I'll say about the Atlanta show, which really ticked me off about Prince, him being dead. When he left that show, Austin, he was on a flight back to Minneapolis. The flight had to be diverted.
Oh yeah.
He had overdosed on some sort of painkillers. They landed the plane. Doctors wanted to keep him there. I forgot exactly where they landed, but they wanted to keep him there, and he refused to stay there. And then this was from there. He puts out a statement because people were concerned. They thought he was dead. And he put out a statement in which he said, and I'll never forget this, he says, save your prayers for later. It was so ominous.
Mm-hmm.
He says, because you'll need them soon. Something of that nature. I'm paraphrasing now.
Oh, wow.
And a week later,
wow,
he's in the elevator dead. And I'm thinking, you know what?
Wow.
You selfish so-and-so.
Yeah.
Because you knew you had this
You
problem.
knew.
And, as much as we despise TMZ, the days leading up to his death, after the plane incident, of course, they spied him out. They showed him
at a pharmacy or something, right? Yeah.
At a pharmacy, a Walgreens pharmacy. He's pacing nervously, waiting for whomever he sent in there to get him his prescription. Then they show him, they get the footage from his doctor's office in which he is going, and you knew he was in trouble at that point. Going into, you saw it. And then they show another piece of footage, him riding the bike at Paisley Park by himself outside. It's like the sun had come up, just had come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you knew he understood that he needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And they were flying in a doctor from San Francisco the morning of his death. An addiction specialist. And you just it was so unnerving. It just I'm sure his loved ones had to have been really upset with him.
Yeah, I was just about to say this doctor was probably like a Conrad Murray, one of those doctors who are not going to be.
The doctor was not linked to his death, but you're right. This is what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
Although when we talk about Michael in a couple of months,
that's a whole nother. Yep.
I don't blame Conrad Murray the way other people. Now to take Conrad Murray was doing something dreadfully wrong. Did he want Michael dead? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But he
gave Michael what he wanted, and this doctor was giving Prince
Right.
what he wanted. So they,
Right.
you know, so
And all
this,
of them were breaking the law.
exactly,
All those
exactly,
doctors were breaking the law because what
for
they
money.
were doing was giving them prescriptions in other people's names,
Absolutely.
which is a no-no.
Mhm.
But the fact that goodness grief, he says Southbound 3000 says, how can you get help when you have all yes men? And that is a major problem.
Exactly.
That is a major
Right on
problem.
point. Right on point.
Yeah. But we will. But here's the thing. Let's leave with this: the two of the greatest Super Bowl halftime performances ever was by these two men that we talked about just now: Michael
Gone too
Jackson in
soon.
1993 and Prince.
Gone too soon.
Absolutely. And so, thus, the purple shirt today. Folks, thanks for joining us. Yes, we missed that man right there. We'll see you again tomorrow.